Yeah, it's a bit of a wild ride. Like I've always been entrepreneurial. Like I'm the kid that was selling painted rocks and tadpoles as a kid. Like I knew the ditches where the tadpoles were in a neighborhood, so I'd go catch them, and then my friends would buy them. So I've always been like that, and paid for my way through college with my own business, doing like landscaping and cleaning up people's yards and stuff. So it's been in my DNA. And I spent a couple years in the advertising industry out of college, and it was great, but I became kind of disgruntled by it. And in a workshop that I did back then, I got this epiphany that I really wanted to help people to build great companies, like to be really successful and squeeze the juice out of life at the same time, like to truly live a great life. And I was inspired by a bunch of people I've seen that were wildly successful and not happy. So, with no experience, never having been a consultant, never was an executive, none of those things that you would think would be the normal path, I started doing this work at 24. And
Yeah, that's
just
crazy.
Welcome to the Your Seat at the Table podcast with your hosts, Idea Monkey Mike Maddock and ringleader John Tobin. We're two founders, a serial entrepreneur and a billion-dollar operator, who talk to leaders about how, when, and why they made their most pivotal decisions in life. Join us as we share wisdom, mistakes, and a few laughs learning from the brightest minds in business today. Welcome to the Your Seat at the Table podcast. Lucky us. I have my buddy Kevin Lawrence today. Kevin, how are you?
I'm doing great, Mike. I'm really, really looking forward to this.
You're going to find that Kevin is Vancouver nice. He's one of my many Canadian entrepreneurial friends. And Kevin is, I've talked about how when it comes to coaches, there's a 90-10 rule. 10% of the coaches, business coaches, I mean, are doing 90% of the good. And Kevin is one of those people. I have so many friends who he has helped bust through business plateaus, like consistently. He has a company of coaches called Lawrence and Company. He's also written a bunch of books. You were a key contributor to Scaling Up, our friend Vern's book, which is a great book. I think it's been published in a zillion different languages. Put your oxygen mask on first. And the book that I'm most fond of is your recent book. It's called The Four Forces of Growth. Really, really good. I've had the honor of inviting you to speak to my Flourish Advisor boards as an outside guru, and everybody comes away with like, whoa. So before we get to the book, before we get to all the CEO magic tricks that you know, Kevin, tell us your story. How did you wind up becoming what you are today?
Yeah, it's a bit of a wild ride. Like I've always been entrepreneurial. Like I'm the kid that was selling painted rocks and tadpoles as a kid. Like I knew the ditches where the tadpoles were in a neighborhood, so I'd go catch them, and then my friends would buy them. So I've always been like that, and paid for my way through college with my own business, doing like landscaping and cleaning up people's yards and stuff. So it's been in my DNA. And I spent a couple years in the advertising industry out of college, and it was great, but I became kind of disgruntled by it. And in a workshop that I did back then, I got this epiphany that I really wanted to help people to build great companies, like to be really successful and squeeze the juice out of life at the same time, like to truly live a great life. And I was inspired by a bunch of people I've seen that were wildly successful and not happy. So, you know, with no experience, never having been a consultant, never was an executive, none of those things that you would think would be the normal path, I started doing this work at 24. And
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy
yeah,
how our stories are so similar. I mean, I hung a shingle at 24, and our tagline should have been "Sure, we can do that too," because I would just go out
yes,
and sell anything I could
yep,
and be like, "Okay, we'll figure it out," and
yep.
kind of learn on the go. And thankfully, had clients that were patient enough to kind of figure it out with me, with us. So. Okay, so you're a big, let's get into the CEO coaching realm, because I
Yep.
know that you spend your days with CEOs that are doing really well but want to do better. Um, what do CEOs consistently get wrong about growth? Like if you could pick one thing that they get wrong, what is it?
that's great. There's a lot. Um, the one that limits them the most is, I call it the loyalty liability, is that you can work with the people that you have, and they try way too hard for way too long to not swap out their exec team when they need to, and or their board sometimes if they have control of the board. But they're so loyal to people and appreciative of people that they end up with the team that's built for the $100 million business, but they're pushing for five, and
Yeah,
it doesn't work.
yeah.
And it slows them down and makes it notably harder. But for most of them, they haven't been there before, and they sometimes can't see how it could be better, or they're just super uncomfortable, letting go of people that they've been working with for so long.
And that is a consistent theme that comes up. I know you're a big,
Consistent.
yeah, I mean, that you're a big fan of Jim Collins. You were kind enough to invite me
Hmm.
to one of his events recently. I've read all of Jim Collins' work. I'm a huge fan, and being in
Me
a room
too.
with him for a day was amazing. His principle of first who, then what, is
Yep.
that, am I getting that right?
Yep.
First who,
First two,
then
then
what?
what? Yep.
Yeah, that's what you're saying, right? And there's this paradox because good people want to treat people well, but sometimes you have to treat the whole organization well, not just the
Correct.
executive team. So you've got your best friend, and he's your partner, and you're stuck at 5 million, 5 million, 5 million. Nobody can understand why you can't
Yep.
get unstuck, and eventually, um, is it usually is it usually inspiration or desperation that makes CEOs change out their executive team?
Usually more likely desperation. Like, it's hard. Like, it needs to get to the point where the pain of making the change and letting someone like that go, which is really hard, is less than the pain. Um, the pain is greater to stay as it is than it is to let the person go. So it's usually desperation, because you're having to fight loyalty, and people have had to do it for people who've been with them, whether it's 6 months or 26 years. It's hard. So it
Yeah.
usually has to come to a massive pain point, and either there's a legal issue, a banking issue, huge amount of stress, like something comes to a head for a lot of people, because contrary to popular belief, most great CEOs aren't these ruthless, cold, spineless people. They actually deeply give a crap. That's why they've built great teams and great companies.
I couldn't agree more. I think the nice almost gets in their way. My one of my
Yes.
mentors is Rick Voren, who is the chairman of Stagen. And I remember I was complaining about something, and he said, "Let me stop you, Mike. In my experience, people like you only change for one of two reasons. Either they are so inspired by the vision of the future that there's nothing, and I mean nothing, that's going to stop them from getting to that vision, or they're tired of suffering. So I have a
Yep.
question for you. Are you inspired by what's next, or are you sick of suffering? Because unless you can say yes to one of those questions, ain't
Nothing
nothing
happens.
gonna change. Yeah. I've seen you in a room, I've seen you on a stage, and you have jazz hands. You can put your sparkle fingers on stun, which is a great talent. And you can get people to change because of vision, which is like, once, because this is a repeating pattern, isn't it? It isn't once you have to change your executive team or get them
No.
thinking differently, right? It's
It's like a
5 million and
treadmill
10
that
million.
keeps,
Yeah.
it's a conveyor, and you got to keep, you have to, in my new book, The Four Forces, I call it the problem of pond hockey. And the simple metaphor is Canadian pond hockey, where whatever kid shows up gets to play. And you got to make the distinction from pond hockey to how NHL hockey is played, and how people earn their time on the ice. And those are the two extremes. And we're trying to move people from the pond hockey, work with what you got, closer to the NHL. But it's like in the NHL, in any sports team, it's a forever and always thing.
Yeah. It's so amazing. I can't believe a Canadian is using hockey as a
Yeah, I know. Isn't
metaphor
that
for
weird?
business. Skate to where the
It'd be
puck's
really weird
going.
if I
Okay.
used cricket. That would be really weird. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about the four forces of growth again.
Hmm.
This is a really good book, and again, you've spoken to the Flourish Advisor Board forums about this, and they come away going, "Oh my gosh!" So quickly, if you can, and please go get the book. I mean, it's really good. Talk about that? What are the four forces of growth?
Well, it goes back to the principles that make airplanes fly. And when I was working on this book, and my question was, how do some companies continue to sustain growth where other ones with equal opportunities, equally capable teams end up losing, and they start fading over time? And I saw it because I saw it in a boardroom all the time where people would passionately pick the wrong thing. So as I was digging into this and trying to figure the right way to explore this, I came across the four forces of flight. And going
Yep.
back to the Wright brothers and all the other people that brought aviation where it is today, there's four forces of flight. There's the lift, which is created by the shape of the wing that pulls the plane up towards new possibilities. And the thrust of the engine pushes the plane forward. And when you have lift and thrust, you get altitude. The plane flies. Um, there's more to the model, but that's the simple part. And I translated this into growth. And for growth, our version of lift that pulls us up is opportunities, looking at new possibilities. Generally, more services to the same customers, more locations, or adding in new customers. It's about engaging with customers. And then our thrust is courage. It's willingness to step out into some of the unknown and take some chances and make new stuff happen. And
Yeah.
when we are focused on opportunities to do more good stuff for customers and we have courage, we get growth. And just like planes get
Hard
altitude.
stop. Hard stop. Right. I mean, that is the okay. So where do CEOs typically get stuck? You've got this four forces of growth. Where do they get stuck
Which
in
they
your
did,
four
which they
forces
did when they
model?
started. In
Yeah.
the early years, that's how everyone starts, and it's pretty easy when you have 4 customers and 3 team members to stay in growth mode because you have to.
Right.
But next thing you know, you get like a couple hundred people and a couple hundred customers. There is noise and problems everywhere. So what happens is if you stay courageous. Now, as companies grow, they often lose courage. Right? They go from playing to win to playing to not lose, right? They lose their courage, and that's a cultural thing and a CEO leadership piece. But the other thing is that you want to focus on opportunities, but there's all these problems, and problems are so magnetic, and you get consumed in problems, and you get stuck what I call like the seduction of streamlining, where you think if I just keep solving my problems, I'll grow.
Right.
Well, no.
Right.
If I just keep solving my problems, my business will run better for sure, but usually the problems will consume all the resources that should have went to growth. So you end up with a very well operating, high functioning, engaged team, happy customers, good margins, great profits, but the resources get pulled away from growth and you stop growing. In simple terms, or your growth slows dramatically, and now you're thinking that the only way you can grow is acquisition or something else like that.
Yeah, and it's if you think about it, it makes sense because people want to be valuable. They want to get your attention, so they go
Yep.
looking for a problem to solve. If you're the CEO and you're like, "Wow, you solved that problem. Good job. I'm going to go find
Yes.
another problem to solve."
Exactly.
And it becomes the center of gravity
It does.
for the company, solving
And it takes
problems.
over the
And
culture of the company.
that's right. And you
And
can't solve problems your way into growth. That's
growth.
essentially the
Well,
right.
here's the way I look at it is that solving problems drives your profit per X, profit for each of your core units, because it gives you efficiency and it really pays off financially. It's kind of like letting the accountants run the company. It's really good for the short term.
Yeah.
But if you have the entrepreneurs running the company, they're going to chase more customers and opportunities, which drives the X or the core unit. So if you're a car dealership, it'd be the number of cars that you sell. And the profit per X is how much you make per car. And you obviously have to do both. But generally over time, gravity will pull you down. Like gravity will pull the plane to the ground. Gravity will pull the business into focusing on the bottom half of the income statement instead of driving the top part.
Yeah, that's another great takeaway from the book. Your and I know that when you walk into a room with a new team, you have the ability to kind of see it objectively. You don't you're not in love with anybody around the table. You're not in love with whatever they've been putting in their pipe and smoking, the stories they've been telling themselves. You're really looking for where's the leverage in this business, and
Yes.
you call it the X. Every business has an X, and the game is figuring out the X and driving the X. I'm using bad word. You do a better job
No,
explaining
no,
this than
that's
I do, of
perfect.
course. So give me some examples of a company that didn't understand what their X was and how
Sure.
finding their X made all the difference.
Great. So, and I would say that everyone knows their X, they just get lost along the way because
Hmm,
it's usually not in their reporting. So, I'll give you an example. A company that was in, we'll call it warehouse services. They provided products and services to warehouse and construction and industrial spaces.
got it.
And for them, when I was talking to the CEO at one point, they're telling me about, their profit growth and everything else. And then I asked about the revenue growth. They go, yeah, it's pretty good. I said, okay, where did it come from? And they said, well, I don't really know. Turns out as we dug in, we looked under the surface. What had actually happening, their number of transactions in their business, their X, was dropping. So it was going down, but because of the price increases they'd put in place, and the mix of business they were selling, it looked like they were growing. The revenue number was larger, and the profit number was larger. They were just doing less transactions with their customers, because a lot of stuff gets buried in financials,
Yeah.
and that's why it's dangerous. So for them, they realized they totally had taken their eye off the ball. And then I dug in. I said, okay, well, I was brainstorming with the CEO. I said, okay, well, what's happening with your sales team?
Mhm.
What are they focusing on? What are they reporting? And so the CEO pulled it up. Everything was around revenue. There was nothing around new accounts. You know, alert. If you don't focus on new accounts in any business, your X is going to fade. You can only farm your existing accounts so much.
Right.
And without a focus on getting new ones, by the way, what are your sales team going to do? They're going to switch from hunters to farmers. So, long story short, they weren't tracking the X's, and they definitely weren't tracking signing up new X's. So that the team became farmers, and of course, the revenue slowed down.
Yeah, and new accounts can be new relationships in a multinational. So, for example, if you have a great relationship with one division, a new account could be
Correct.
another division. Yeah. Okay. So,
Correct.
quick pivot, and I'm going to give Tina credit for this because I asked her last night, "Hey, I'm talking to Kevin tomorrow. What question would you ask him?" And off the top of her head, she said, um, "Can you have an X in your personal life?"
Ooh, that's a good job,
I've
Tina.
I've had some time to think about this. I have an answer for you. My axis memories. You
Yeah,
know, like
I
the
was
thing
thinking
that
about
I'm.
something.
Yeah. What's yours? What's yours?
We don't have an X identified in our life, but if we Heidi and I were just last night on final version of the last half of our goals for this year. We reset our master plan for the next 10 years every year, and we're going to finish it tonight. But if you would look through that, it's going to be like quality experiences with people that we love,
Love it.
which is
Yeah.
which is which would result to memories. So it could be one that I would consider is like when we were caught up when I was in Chicago is number of hours in really enriching conversation.
Yeah.
That
I love
that
that.
could be memories, could be. Um, I think number of very meaningful interactions with people, not whether in sports and
I had
yeah,
a
that's a great
I
one.
forgive me for not being able to remember his name, but I feel bad about it. But years ago, I saw someone speak about how he had decided to take a picture every day, and it had to be an interesting picture. And it completely changes behavior because every day he'd wake up and go, "What am I doing today that's worthy of a picture?" And his whole talk was about these pictures that he took and what the behavior that he changed to make sure he got a great picture. And so I love the way that ladders up to an X. Like if my X is about making meaningful memories, that's one strategy
Yep.
to get you to ladder up to it. So anyway, the four forces
There's
of
a book
growth.
called The
Yeah.
Power of Moments, I think. The
Yeah,
Power
yeah,
of
yeah.
Moments, which it talks about, like, if you've created a really powerful moment, by nature, someone's going to pull out a camera. They can't help but. And that's a
Yeah.
similar philosophy to what you're talking about.
This is
Yeah,
like a chicken and egg version of that. Like I'm pulling out a
it
camera,
is.
so I better be somewhere that's worthy of the picture. Okay,
I'm
so
gonna write that down. By the way, I'm gonna write that down. I'm gonna talk to Heidi about it. We're gonna figure out our personal X because it's a similar neighborhood to what you're talking about. I
well,
love that.
you inspired it, so thank you. Thank you for the
Okay.
gift. Okay, so you know that in Flourish Advisor boards, there are 6 different types of
Yep.
CEOs, and you could name CEOs that fit in each one of these seats, but there's the operator, the strategist, the visionary, the rainmaker, the tech futurist, and the orchestrator. With that in mind, or maybe not, what are the most common team composition mistakes you see? So when you walk into an executive team, what mistakes do you see? What do you like? Ugh, this is central casting from "It's not going to work." What are the
Yeah.
common mistakes?
So you could translate it into the 6 roles. Um, what do I see? Outside of fit, there's people that just don't fit and just don't produce. Um, Generally, when there's too many operators and there's not a visionary or strategic,
Yeah.
like, rule of thumb, generally, I find very, very few executives are really good at the strategic or visionary. And if I'm
Hmm.
exaggerating, many of them default to operator. And I'm exaggerating. But what I'll notice, I can tell in their strategic plans because I can see when all of their plans, are all in that improvement quadrant, like in the 4 forces, when they're all about operational thinking and nothing is about growth, which would be coming from the visionary or the strategist probably. And so I can see that consistently where there's nobody on there that's really hungry or aggressive about growth and having the courage to push for that. I see that. So too many operators is very, very common. Um, and if the CEO can balance it out, then fine. But the team composition, that would be a challenge.
I think that probably goes to the size companies you're used to working with because correct me if I'm wrong. I think the opposite is true when you're in startup land, like 0 to 5 million, there are probably too many visionaries and not enough operators. And then as you become, when you've got more to lose, you bring in the professional operators
Professionals, exactly.
and they start surrounding
Yep.
themselves with people that look like
Yes.
them and to respond to problems the same way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then
Okay.
they become so conservative that they stop really trying to push to win. Yeah.
Okay. So, um, here's a quick question, and I was so excited about talking to you, so I will admit that I wrote some questions down early. Um, okay, so in your experience, do the best CEOs run their companies for, and this is like multiple choice or fill in the blank, whatever you want to do, legacy, money, mastery, or something else entirely? So legacy, money, mastery, or something else entirely?
I would tie legacy and if we use the word purpose, going back to Collins's work, purpose and
Yeah.
legacy are similar, where it's like the legacy of radiating, like doing good stuff. Like when I'm inside the best companies that I've ever had the opportunity to work with, they deeply care about being great, and that's tied into mastery, tied into purpose slash legacy. The money is a byproduct. Like
Yeah,
money only takes you so far, and most of our clients, as they get going, they don't need more. It's a great scorecard.
that's
But
right.
they generally truly are trying to do great things and they like the challenge of it.
Do you have a do you have you okay, so agree or disagree. uh, the greatest CEOs really don't care if they get credit.
Yes. The
Yeah,
greatest CEOs, when you step into a room and you don't know anybody, if you're just to observe, you'd have a hard time telling which one's the CEO.
yeah. I think I've been thinking about this a lot lately, that there's this paradox of that great CEOs are servant leaders, so they don't care about their reputation. And so that when they stop working, nobody knows who they are, so they don't get to share what gave them their reputation. The idea of having a
Yes.
portable brand is so important, but the people that should
The
spend the
best ones
most
don't have
time,
one.
and
The
they
best
won't
ones
do it.
don't have a brand,
Yeah. So
or
John's not
barely.
here today, but my podcasting partner John is one of those guys that he will walk into a room and nobody knows that he's the founder of this company, or a co-founder of a company with tens of thousands of employees, and they don't even know who he is in the room. And it's a symptom of him being a great leader. He doesn't care about that, but it's a shame because he's got a lot of wisdom to share. And so I
It
think I see
is,
that in a lot
but
of my friends.
because they're about building amazing organizations. They're not about building their own personal brand. And there are the
That's right.
type that lead through their brand, and the brand is connected to their product, right? And to a
Yeah,
certain degree, that's the case for me. But my intent is to build an organization that's not about me at all.
right.
But so I have a bias in that direction. But I think a number of the CEOs that we've worked with, um, yeah, they want it to be not about them for the endurance, to make the company enduring, and they obviously they like to they're like the engineer behind the scenes.
Is there, yeah, and I've been beating my a lot of my CEO friends over the head. The ones that are like the most legit, humble servant leaders. I'm like, you're going to leave your company and no one is going to unwrap the gift that you are. You got to spend a little bit of time, just a little bit,
Yep,
making sure that people know who you are. Okay, so let's go to blind spots. Is there um, a CEO blind spot that you see more often than not? Like you can pick a seat, like you can operator, rainmaker, visionary, whatever.
mm,
But is there a common blind spot like, ugh, this strength has become a weakness, man? And you don't see it.
I mean, there's lots of them. Um, Sometimes, again, this is probably visionary, believing in possibility, they get mired in all the stuff going on, and believing that almost anything is possible if they stay focused on it. I think the biggest one is actually around talent. Like, I'm helping one of my clients with their advisory board right now and recruiting people. And for years, and this business is about, close to 400 million of revenue.
Yeah.
And I'm saying we need to add board members who are from at least a billion, but ideally a 1.5 billion, with a similar operating system, still founder led, founder owned, and they've been a part of that kind of operating system. And it took a while, but because I'm like, this is a great company. All kinds of the most talented people in that $1 to $2 billion range would love to be on this board. And it took a while. But now the people were interviewing people yesterday, and these people are inspiringly spectacular. Like, these amazing people will be thrilled to be a part of it. So I think it's the scarcity belief about talent, and there's not enough out there. I think it's the biggest. There is such amazing people always available to join, whether it's the executive team or the directors of the board, board members, or the directors under the executives. So that's a blind spot. There is absolutely spectacular talent all over the place. You gotta tap into it.
I remember being asked to come in and give a talk to a Fortune 100 board. And the prep I got was, there's one entrepreneur on this board and he is dying because everyone else on the board is an Enneagram 3 and they think he's from Mars and they just want to
Right.
mitigate risk, mitigate risk, mitigate risk. hint, it was a financial services company, but
Right.
I was just there to soften the beach for the entrepreneur on
Right.
the board who wanted to take more chances.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me ask you some lightning round questions. Are you ready?
Sure.
First thing that comes to your head. Um, Gut or data?
Got
I love it.
I
It's
try
like
I use data as
half
needed.
our half our audience is like, "Are you out of your mind?"
No.
Okay. A related question. Visionary or operator?
Visionary.
Okay, awesome. Um, Best book for CEOs besides your own?
All of Jim Collins's books. Good
Yeah,
to
do you have a
Great,
favorite?
probably. I like How the Mighty Fall. It's, when one of our sessions with Jim, he asked people the favorite one, and I was the only one. There was like 20 of us. Only one that said How the Mighty Fall, and he gave me this little funny smile. He's like, "Yeah, me too. It's my trip to the dark side." Well,
It
that was
was
his
so
word.
depressing. I felt like
It
I
is.
read that book. I'm like, this is a story about me and I hate it. I mean, it was like the worst
Right.
nightmare for a business person. And I just like, oh God,
But the
if
thing
you
I
can
love
read,
about that book is like it tells you what the warning signs are when you're screwing up your own company and how to bring it back. I
the
reference it
challenge,
all the time.
try reading it when it's too late. It's very
Yeah, no, that
depressing.
would
You
be
know, like
pain. That would be excruciating. Don't do that. Read
I,
like Winnie the Pooh or something like that.
I
Yeah,
did.
that's not
I,
that's go ahead.
I read it right after one of my
Yeah, that
businesses
would
was
hurt.
failing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, so if you can read How the Mighty Fall and be really happy about it, count your blessings because it means you haven't been
Mm,
to the dark side yet. Okay.
very good point.
Um, Most underrated CEO skill.
Listening and observing.
What'd you say? Okay.
Listen.
You took the bait. Okay.
Yeah,
Most overrated CEO trait.
talking, persuading, selling.
What makes top CEOs dangerous in a good way?
They often want to empower people, and they often will let go of too much of the reins in areas that hurt them in the end.
Yeah, I think that there's a quick digression from the lightning round. Talk about that for a second. You're uh delegating or abdicating
Exactly.
responsibility. So there are certain things that people like I'll call them God-given gifts that nobody else is ever going to have regardless of their CV, and the CEO should, I believe, hang on to that part of their mojo and not abdicate it, delegate it, relegate it, whatever the word is.
Yeah.
Can you have a story about that?
Endless. I have probably 14. I'm trying to think which one would be most relevant. I can share an example. Like I was on with a CEO this morning, and I work within another country. Just hired a president for the business. And the conversation is the most important thing is onboarding that person properly and then letting go and staying connected. But in all of the theory out there, he's thinking he needs to fully let go and let this guy run. He has great experience and everything. And in the end, I've probably seen, I don't know, $200-300 million of damage to companies from that exact move because they think they're supposed to give them a lot of space and they give them too much. And it almost becomes like abdicating
Yeah.
versus like empowering the person to run and be successful. It happens all the time. And for example, I got a very good one. One of my clients, this is a US based client. I'll keep it generic to protect the innocent.
Innocent.
But they brought in a great president from a great company, like incredible pedigree, incredible background, incredible company. Love the guy. He was great. This company had a very strong operating system. It had a strong scaling up operating system, and it had some top grading operating system for people. Like it was a well-oiled machine, beating the competitors in the industry on every mark. Like it was a beast. We built this great company. And when the president came into this company, the CEO backed off and gave the person space. At some point, the CEO calls me and says, "Kevin, we gotta jump in here, and I need some help because the president had a different operating system that matched the companies, and execution stopped, strategy got murky, they lost their competitive advantage. Now the company is still very profitable, but now we're in a turnaround. And
Yeah.
we're doing it. It's fine, but too much of the core operating system disappeared, and the company just started going to mush. Accountability
Yeah.
disappeared. Everything faded. And the conversation with the CEO after, and he was obviously frustrated with himself. And this is all learning, but he realized is that he needed to make sure he needed to hold on to a few key pieces of the operating system that were non-negotiables, and what Jim Collins would call on the smack list, and not let the person bring in their complete own operating system, because it really, really hurt the business. And it was
Yeah.
almost um, it was almost depressing in itself. It was just like this company was a shining star, and now it needs a lot of help.
My from my experience, something that I see happening a lot is you have an entrepreneurial CEO. So this is someone in the Flourish framework would be a visionary, strategist, or rainmaker. Okay, and
Hmm. Hmm.
they have used either sales or vision or some kind of seeing the market differently to
Yep.
start something new, and then do it again, and then do it again, and then do it again. So they get this company up to 50 million, 100 million, 200 million, whatever. And then they bring in a professional operator and they
Yep.
give them the reins, and
Yep.
they get bored because there's nothing for them to do in that company. So they go off and start other companies. Like they start new things. They can't help
Yes.
themselves.
Yes.
Meanwhile, that innovation, that fire of innovation has left the building. And it's
Yes.
too bad. My coaching is like, okay, if you're one of those, if that's your mojo, man, cut out something in the new operating system for that mojo to live and
to
thrive,
keep to
and
keep
don't
that
give it
keep
away.
that yes, keep it in the company, because the company needs it,
Yeah,
because those types of skills, normally the new people coming in don't have them, especially when you hire like the professional president or professional CEO.
yeah. Actually, I'm
Exactly.
remembering that when we were together with Jim Collins, he talked about this. I think he used it as was it Best Buy, where they were this juggernaut, and then they started Auto Nation or something, and like because
Yes.
that creativity left the building and started something new, like, and that's what was the new exciting thing. Anyway, if I'm
Yep.
remembering it correctly. Okay, back to the lightning round.
Yep.
Sorry for that.
That's
Um,
great. I love it.
okay, the peak performance fuel of a leader. Pick one: curiosity, fear, ambition, or insecurity.
Oh. Earlier
Curiosity, fear,
no.
ambition, or insecurity.
Fear, fear or insecurity in the early parts of someone's career. Ideally, they graduate to a cleaner fuel of purpose and impact, and that's a transition. But generally, 20s, 30s, sometimes 40s, people are still fear of not being good enough, fear of not hitting it. But it's a dirty fuel source, but it's a great way to get started.
I love that. I love that cleaner fuel. It's a great way to talk about it. What is the phrase? Productive paranoia.
Yep.
Most of my friends that are successful still have a fair amount of that.
Huge degrees. Yes.
Okay. Is having CEO friends overrated or essential?
I think it's essential. Absolutely
Tell me
essential.
why.
One, for your sanity, because you realize that we're all similarly crazy. And two, entrepreneurs, CEOs, professional CEOs, or founders think differently, and it's incredibly helpful to be around like-minded people with similar challenges, whether it's challenges at work or in life. I think like almost every person almost all of the people I spend time with are founders, mostly founder CEOs, because you're in
I
sync.
would I would build on that. And in my experience, the CEOs, there are certain things that feel like first world problems that you can only tell another
Correct.
CEO so they don't roll their eyes like, oh, that must be really hard. Like, well, it is
Yeah, you can't.
hard.
We
Yeah,
talk all the time. We're not gonna go and talk about. First of all, we don't even like to talk about all the good stuff happening in our life with some friends
that's
and
right.
family, because it's too much. But when you're around other business people and CEOs, it's like they're doing the same things. It's easier. I think for me, it's a huge part of my sanity, and I think
Yeah.
it's yeah.
The other thing I would say is that I think sometimes the only person that you're going to allow to tell you that your baby is ugly is another CEO, which is to say that,
Yes. Yes.
really, not sure that that's a good idea, or I tried that and it really didn't work for me.
Exactly.
Say
And let
more.
me tell you why. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, Kevin, I really appreciate you. Again, the 90-10 rule in coaching. I have so many friends that have sold their businesses and moved on to helping other people grow parts of their business. And in the world of CEO coaching, there is a 90-10 rule, and 10% of these coaches are doing 90% of the good. And Kevin, I feel so grateful that we're buddies and you're one of those
Hmm.
guys, because
Me
you are
too.
constantly, putting fuel in my engine, to use your flight metaphor. So thank you.
Thank you, and thanks for doing this. I always love when we chat, Mike, and and you as well. You're just trying to do good in the world. You're trying to help people, like I am. And the funny thing is, it's really rewarding to help people because you get to see how it impacts them, and it's business at the same time. So I don't know, what a great way to live life.
Yeah. Lucky us. Thank you, Kevin.
Aha, I think so.